So that was our.
I love Crash and Burn.
And we're live. In this episode, we're going to be talking to another guest who has been on the podcast before, but he has so much to tell. He's an absolute legend, and I can't wait for you guys to hear for today's episode. Hello, my name is Ellie.
And I am Tara.
And welcome back to another 180 Shift podcast. If you haven't checked out all of our social medias yet, please do so at 180 Shift and also our website at 180shift.org. How are you doing today, Tara?
I am doing well, and I have to apologize because I was supposed to bring boba, and I did not.
That's all right. Things happen.
Accountability. It's an opportunity for accountability. I apologize.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I've been doing a lot of finals, guys. It's almost there, almost done. I've got the end on Saturday. I think I'm done, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's been a lot. But yeah.
Well, we have a wonderful guest today, like you had said.
Yes.
Can you introduce yourself?
Well, my name's David Hernandez, and it's a pleasure to be back. And it's been an honor and a joy to watch the two of you over the past 2 years just evolve into young women, into what you are, today. It's amazing the impact you've had on society with just simple questions and simple interviews, but really addressing common sense and making people really think. It's like, watching it when you're interacting with people in some volatile situations that I've seen you in, that most people wouldn't have the courage to be in those situations, and we can talk about some of those situations later, but to be able to maintain your composure and not become aggressive when you're confronted with aggression is really something. So I congratulate you on that. And like I said, it's been an honor to be part of that evolution.
Yes. And he brings us to our theme for tonight, which is, this is the last episode of 180 Shift that we're going to have in this studio. So it's kind of an emotional night.
It's okay. No, but don't worry. We're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere at all.
It's hard to get rid of us.
It's just, I think we're going to have to take some time to just, restyle, right?
And in the meantime, you're probably going to just see our Zoom interviews.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which have been pretty powerful through the years. I mean, when we first went to Satakoy Street Elementary School, and you interviewed that mom there at the with 500 Armenian parents standing up for their students, and then also at the Glendale School District. I think it was your interview from Satakoy that really put the whole transitioning, the indoctrination on a national level, because people were watching that and it's like, wait a minute, this is an elementary school. And It just so happened it was the elementary school that I went to.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That must have been such a big thing to witness the fact that your school has gone, how it's progressed, basically.
Talk about a discovery. No, it's sad. It's really sad.
But hey, thank you so much, David, for willing to come on here. I know you're very busy. You've got a lot of stuff that you're doing. I know you are currently the LA is it regional vice chair?
Right. About a year and a half ago, I was elected to the state Republican Party. And so I'm the regional vice chair representing the county of Los Angeles to the state party. There's a difference between the state party and the county party. They're two separate entities, and the county party has its own chair and its own central committee members. So they deal with local LA County stuff. I'm more as a liaison between the Republican Party base in L.A. County, not just the Central Committee, but all Republicans in L.A. County to the state party. And so what information comes from the state party, I disseminate that to Republicans throughout L.A. County. And I also take and get information, ideas, concerns, suggestions from Republicans in L.A. County, and I take that to the state board. And that way, there's so many good people with great ideas in Los Angeles County that it behooves the state party board to hear some of these suggestions that are really good. And I mean, one of the things that I've been involved with Republican politics since 2002. And it wasn't until I met Ellie and found out about pre-registering at 16 and 17 years old. Now, the Democrats have been doing that. I mean, here we are. We've got an election coming up in 2026.
Yep.
There's probably 100,000, 200,000 16 and 17-year-olds that are registered Democrat because they put a concerted effort to do that. And that's one thing the Republican Party was failed to do. You know, they're looking at the seniors or the people that have homes, property, all of these high-propensity voters, when in reality, they're just one election away, or now they're just one election away from losing the House of Representatives again.
And that brings us back to why we started 180 Shift in the first place. Both Ellie and I saw this amongst our peer group, and we knew that there was a problem. It's that woke mind virus. It's the woke mob, and it's very controlling, but it's very easy to catch. It's very contagious.
Especially with peer pressure. You don't want to be criticized. You don't want to be singled out.
You don't want to be a bad person.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like, and I've talked to, because of 180 Shift, I've had so many doors open, you know, of opportunities of having a heart-to-heart with Gen Z, you know, which is the young voters right now. That's aged about 12 to 26. And then we'll have Gen Alpha after that. And talking to Gen Z members and hearing them. And a lot of the times it was just, look, like, you might be technically right about, you know, whatever you're talking about, business, capitalism, economy. But at the end of the day, like, I am not racist. I am not sexist. I am not those things. Why would I affiliate myself with a party that is inherently these things? Most
of those kids that you talked to probably thought it was the Republicans that were the party of slavery, and it wasn't. It was the Democrats. Yeah, that's, you know, that we had a whole civil war about that.
But then they say that they flipped.
Oh yeah, they flipped. Yeah, they flipped all right.
They did the plot thicket. It's like it's hard.
Give us an example where they flipped. You still have.
No, you have
Jefferson.
I always say, just, okay, well, look at Jefferson. He's the one who started the Republican Party, and his whole thing was small, local. That's the same as we have today. And at that point, they're just like, I want to talk about something else. Because at the end of the day, they don't want their mind changed. They don't want that part of their brain opened yet.
You know what I think is the problem with that is the fact that they're not. It's very uncomfortable to be exposed to things that are going to be sort of life-altering in a way, or perspective-altering, because it's very hard. This is something that I was talking about with one of my classes that I'm taking right now, is the fact that you don't want to get yourself outside of a bubble. You don't want to open yourself up to that idea because it's so hard. It's like painful almost for some people.
It's the pride.
Well, and I know. It's not that you're just going to lose friends, but there is a viciousness out there. I was speaking with a young lady who was a political science major who graduated last month from CSUN. Yeah. And she basically said she had to keep her mouth shut, or it was going to impact her grade. And so she kept quiet, went along, and that's really a shame that we have seen ideals that the Democrat Party espouses, free speech and all of these different liberties and all of this stuff. Your own self be true, and if you say something that doesn't go along with the agenda of certain radicals within the Democrat Party, then you're ostracized. Because as we're seeing now, the bills coming out of Sacramento, the things coming through the superintendent of public instruction into the schools, into the libraries, that's not the run-of-the-mill Democrat. Those are the extremist leaders that have taken over the Democrat Party, and unfortunately, and by their own doing, they keep getting voted in by the same people who think, oh, it's the evil Republicans. And so that's the mantra. You paint Republicans as being sexist, homophobic, transphobic, Islamophobic, any of those number of things. Then you don't have to deal with, well, we have terrible roads. You're having to spend so much on car repairs because of the potholes and the ruts in the road. The price of food is skyrocketing. Gas is skyrocketing. There's homeless on every street. You have 6 homeless people a day dying in the 4th largest economy in the world, Los Angeles. And then you have fires that just go in there and ravage communities, both in the Palisades and in Altadena. Yeah. And the response from the city council is, we're going to cut the budget of the fire department and the police department.
And not even to mention the things that, Gen Zers are dealing with, which is you have parents walking in on their Gen Z child just completely dead from a suicide or an overdose.
Oh, yes.
And
you know what? I don't even call it an overdose. I call it a poisoning. I mean, because I have friends who, and I have my nephew. He was probably like 26, 27. His 14-year-old son was sleeping in the other room, and he went to sleep. And when they couldn't wake him up in the morning.
Wow.
And it's like, I mean, those are the type of things, and and we talk a lot about faith, and we talk a lot about God, and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that at times that really it forces me to question faith. Because, I would hear, nothing happens in God's world by mistake. Oh, really? And I hear people talk about, if nothing's going to happen to me because of God. And it's like, I know too many people that were not bad people. Mm-hmm. And so how do you explain that?
I think for that, it's like, this is the enemy's territory. If we are friends with the world, we are befriending the enemy. And unfortunately, in those cases where just innocent lives are completely... sometimes it is just pure tragedy and only God knows. But I feel like with some of these teenagers and 20-year-olds who are choosing to take these substances, there needs to be a little personal accountability for that. My husband's best friend died 3 months ago. Yeah. And it's crazy. I can't believe it's already been 3 months. Died in his sleep from Percocet, mm-hmm. And there were other things happening, so I'm not going to say, just that. There were other things happening. It was like a perfect storm with sickness and that kind of thing. But it was like, this guy's 21. Yeah. He even with his other conditions, he should be living way longer than this. But it's like, when my husband was talking about it, he just sat there and he just wept, and he was just like, I wish I would have tried harder to inspire my friend, to inspire mm-hmm. him. Why, my husband goes to church. My husband's an electrician. He's an apprentice. He goes to college. He's a hard worker. He has his problems, but he's generally a pretty good mm-hmm. influence. When he would go and hang out with this other friend, he would live in that friend's world, So it's like, what's stopping these young people from stepping out and interrupting? It's like the girl with the
right.
professor. Yes, you're probably scared of the bad grade. I totally get it. I've been there. But I also know a young man who sits there and politely listens to the professor, listens to the other students, and then lays out his rhetoric, lays out right. his perspective. And you know what he gets? He gets mad respect from the whole class. The teacher gives him great grades. Uh-huh. She's impressed with how he stands up for himself. So it's like, is it that we're scared of hurting our damaging our pride? Is that why we really don't want to step up? Our image, right? Exactly. I really think it's a humility issue, and I think it directly correlates with young relationships. Why aren't young people getting married? We just had a podcast on that. Young people are not getting married. I think primarily is because they are bad with relationship skills. They don't know how to handle conflict because they don't know how to handle their humility.
Growing up in a society where everyone gets a trophy, you don't know how to deal with rejection.
I thought you were going to say everyone gets divorced.
No, I mean, well, and that happens too, and it's something because I have a lot of gay friends, and I remember when gay marriage was legalized here in California, and that they couldn't wait to go and get married. A couple of years later, they're going through a terrible divorce, and I said, "Yeah, be careful what you pray for." I said, I'm not judging. It's just an observation that when you had double income and no kids, you were able to go to the movies, go to the plays, go to rock concerts, all this different stuff. And now you have responsibilities, and now you got to pay attorney's fees and divide up your communal property. And they're like,
so it's like you got what you wanted.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
I mean, and it's something because even in California, because people think of California as that it is so progressive. But in reality, in 2008, when Obama was elected, that traditional marriage was on the ballot. And in California, traditional marriage passed. And so when you look at the number of Democrats that came out to vote for Obama, it's like, the first black president. So you had a lot of Democrats, especially black Democrats, go to the polls and vote. So they voted for Obama, but they voted for traditional marriage. And so that constitutional amendment passed in California. However, the opponents of it then sued the state of California to keep it from being implemented. And what happened was Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor and Kamala Harris was the attorney general. The only one that could answer a lawsuit against the state is the governor or the attorney general. And so Arnold Schwarzenegger and Kamala Harris refused to answer the lawsuit and lost by default. That's the reason we have the situation we have now. The voters of California, especially the majority of Democrats, voted for traditional marriage. And yet we kept hearing that, it must be the Republicans that are homophobic or all of these different things. No, there's people with common sense on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of minorities, too, I feel like. But I don't know. I have a bunch of Hispanic cousins who seem to be very pro-gay marriage. So I don't know.
You know what? I know people that are pro-gay marriage.
Yeah.
But they are definitely not okay with what has happened with transitioning. They're definitely not okay with what has happened to women's sports, what has happened to young people like Chloe, and all these different things that were going on. It was almost as if unless you accept everything that the left wants, then there's something wrong with you. So when we had Billie Jean King and you had Martina Navratilova, who were champions for feminism and equity in sports for women, when they said, wait a minute, we've been fighting for women's rights for decades, and now all of a sudden you're going to have a biological man compete in a women's sports, and then not only do they not win the event, but they lose the scholarships. And so a lot of individuals that would get scholarships, especially from poor communities, would excel in sports in order to get those scholarships and then go on to have a wonderful life and a career. They're also being cheated by that. And so those are the type of things that the Democrat Party still is not connecting the dots. They think, you're just making a big deal out of nothing. And we have a president today that a lot of these issues that have gone unaddressed for the past 4 years, people are getting a rude awakening, and that is just one of them.
Yeah. I mean, I think another thing that the Democrats are not connecting the dots to is young men specifically. We're seeing that the Democrats actually got together and spent $20 million in trying to get young men back on their side, back to their party. I mean, it's just crazy to see how they don't get why young men have moved over to the Republican Party. And I mean, I don't know. We've talked about it quite a bit, but one of the things that I heard, I'm trying to remember who it was. It was somebody from the Democratic Party it's the DNC chair. He said that that young people should stop worrying about politics. It's not their place to. Instead, they should be worrying about getting laid and going to parties.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
That's how it starts, but it ends up walking into the showers at Auschwitz. Because that is the natural progression of socialism to communism to what is happening. And so, they don't want you to get involved. Then why was he involved? And so you don't want people. That's why what you ladies do is so important, because with your talents in interviewing, but also what you do with social media. I mean, can you imagine in the 1950s, you would never be able to reach the people that you're able to reach now.
Yep.
I mean, we would be stuck with 5 channels on TV in black and white with the Indian screensaver on there, and you'd have to, I remember you had to get up and change the channel. I remember when Zenith came out with a remote control, and it was a big box and had these big buttons, and you got a remote control. You really arrived. My family was originally from Lincoln Heights. Our color TV was a black and white Zenith television, and they came out with this plastic with like rainbow colors that you would put over the screen. And so when the screen lit up, then all of a sudden you had color. That was our first color TV.
How did it look?
Horrible. But we would say, well, we have color TV. Little did we know that. Look at where we are today. I mean, it's now you type a text into Google VO3, and then bam, it adds the dialogue, it lip syncs it, this AI generated you want to hear it in a different language, you want to hear all of these different things. And although I was talking with somebody who was a 16-year union member in IATSE. She was she did lighting, she did a little choreography, and in the movie industry here in Los Angeles is down 40%. And it's only getting worse.
No, I see it. I see it. I'm in the Hollywood Print Network. I go to my meetings, and let's say 40 people show up. Half of them are just unemployed. I'm looking. I don't know what's happening. The strikes, the AI. I can't tell what it is. The streaming.
Well,
and it's
what she said was that if you want to shoot a film in London, the British government will reimburse you over 40% of your production cost. So if you're going to do a $10 million film...
Same with even, I think, Texas. Even.
Yeah, well, but mainly it's other countries and Canada. You're going there, you have a $10 million budget, you go ahead and you shoot, or a $100 million budget, you shoot, and the government gives you $50 million. There's no way to compete. So what was really surprising when she said, because she was a Democrat, thank God President Trump is talking about tariffs against film production done in England and Canada and some of the others, because they need a level playing field. Tax incentives that the governor here wants to give them, a break on the permit fees and things like that. That doesn't hold any water when it comes to getting 50% of your budget back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, and we know that they care about this because they're thinking strategically. When you're making the movies, when you're making the media, you are now you're like the culture opinion generator, which is, another thing that our generation has suffered from is so much indoctrination through our shows and our songs and our media.
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah, no, I mean, the media that we're currently seeing, everything has a message, and I don't think many of us have been taught to critically think about what each message is giving us. And that's why we're seeing what we're seeing right now.
Exactly. And if you think about what critical, because, they had the critical core thinking in the school system, right? If you look at really what they were doing to us, is they weren't teaching us critical thinking. Critical thinking is handing us a novel and giving us a dictionary. They weren't teaching you how to think.
They were teaching you what to think.
Yes. Right. So that's how they slipped in the indoctrination, was they were saying the critical thinking is, we're going to help you figure out why this is sexist. That's the critical thinking. And it's oh, okay. And I'm still stuck with that mind. I was totally indoctrinated. I was just indoctrinated. And I was homeschooled for my early childhood. But once I got into school at about, third grade to ninth grade, I mean, they did a number on me. It was just the textbooks, the, hammering, when I was 8, that's when Obama was president. And
What?
in my school, it was like, if you were white, then that means that you descended from a slave owner. That means that you have bad blood in you have bad blood. And you owe the black kids something. I don't know what you owe them, but you owe them something, even if it's just your lunch. Like, that was what I grew up in with school. So I was already beaten over the head with, like, white bad, man bad.
I'm very glad I didn't go to school the rest of the years.
No, I've literally had but it's crazy. And I left. I left that environment when I came to California, and so I quickly just adapted to the form, just the culture, and it was just. Again, it was just normal, Being Christian, being conservative is the counterculture thing. That is the rebellious thing. And
Well, what I'm saying now is don't resist, rebel. Register Republican.
Yeah.
And
The new slogan.
I was at, I think it was, it might have been a June 17th breakfast or a Martin Luther King Day breakfast. And the speaker was an African-American professor from an Ivy League school back east. Made tons of money, was well educated. And what he said was, it's racist for you to think that members of the black community could achieve anything more than what they're achieving because they were enslaved for 200 years. Now, I sometimes ask irreverent questions. So I turned to the other people that were at our table and I said, weren't the Jews enslaved for 400 years? And they looked at me like, I said, how come they're not being held back? And so here this guy is a professor who has, his the curriculum, the textbooks are the books that he wrote. They're flying around the country talking about how, it's really, we need reparations and we need this and that. And it's like, there's no logic to it. And so that's why they have to say, okay, you're white, you're part of the imperialist oppressors. You have to atone, and if you see no difference in color or ethnicity, then that's because you're a racist and you don't know it. It's just you don't realize. If you treat everybody equal, then you're a racist because you're not getting in touch with the 200 years of slavery. And it's like, wait a minute. So does that apply to Mexicans too?
Yeah.
How about the Irish? Remember when the Irish came here and they were hanging Irish?
Yeah.
And the Irish couldn't go anywhere. How about the Jews when they couldn't, in the 50s here in Los Angeles, they couldn't go to certain restaurants. Everybody's been screwed over.
Not to mention immigrants who just got here and are like trying to hustle and get everything together with nothing.
Yeah. Well, and what we saw, look at the difference in the country in just, I'll just say 2 years. With an open border, with 10 million people coming across the border, hundreds of thousands a day from everywhere on the planet, not just Central and South America or Mexico, but from China, from Afghanistan, from Africa, and all of that. I was at a screening with RFK Jr., and it was his during his campaign for president, and it was his movie about him going to the border, because his position was, that the system is broken, and these are just poor people coming here from Central and South America, and besides our dealings of the CIA, we screwed those countries up anyways. So he went down there, and he saw very few people that were coming up to the border and presenting themselves. And he saw very few that were Hispanic. Most of them were from all those other countries.
Yeah.
And as soon as he changed his position, then all of a sudden the Democrat Party said, well, we don't care that you're a Democrat. We're not going to let you debate. We're not going to let you up on stage with Joe Biden. We're all these different things. And so he finally said, you know what? He walked away from it. He goes, because what the Democrat Party was trying to present was not reality. They were, and as we see now, it was basically the Obama people that were controlling President Biden, and now we're finding out about the auto signers and all the different things, and so Democrats are right there to call you, a fascist or a racist or all these different things, when they, in fact, they're the ones that are guilty of it. And so it's going to be an amazing time, because here we are starting summer. I mean, this is going to be a very volatile time here, especially in Los Angeles.
Right.
And because what we're seeing now is the illegal border crossings are down to about 5 a day, down from 90,000 a day. Now it's down to 5 a day, and so that's freeing up the resources. And what Tom Holman and what the head of Homeland Security, what she said was, you know what, we're giving you a chance to self-deport. You do that, and in some instances, we'll give you $1,000, and you'll be eligible to come back. But if you don't, and we catch you, and we are going to catch you, you will never be able to come back. So you have a lot of self-deportation taking place right now. But we just saw yesterday in Minnesota where ICE is not being intimidated by the public getting there and blocking streets or doing protests. They're going in there and force now, and they've I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people have already been deported in just 4 months since Trump took office. Mm-hmm. So they mean business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw actually a Trump post. What was it? Just 2 days ago, probably. And I sent it to all my friends because I was like, look at what this guy's posting. But it said, let the deportations begin. And it was just a bunch of airplanes just there.
Well, that's the thing.
Isn't that
Trump
crazy?
Knows that 4 years goes by pretty fast. That's why he was in there about midnight signing everything. But just his you know how we have that executive function in our brain that makes decisions? Mm-hmm. And it's if you want to be a leader of a family, if you want to be a leader of a country, that part of your brain needs to be strong and decisive, basically. Right. And I think that that's the core of why young men, Gen Z men, love the guy. Low-key just love the guy. Even if they're just love him as a meme. They love that he is a man. He's an actual man.
Yeah, there's no more of that toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
No, it's just masculinity.
Exactly. The Barbie movie is a perfect example. Because you have the dumb boss, right? You have the beta male, you have the gay guy, you have the trans guy. You have all these different male archetypes, but you don't have the Superman. No Superman. No Superman character. Who's Superman? Barbie is Superman.
Yeah.
Barbie is everything. But it's young men, they need that Superman. And maybe it's just subconscious, but especially, those with fathers, those without fathers, there's something, it's how we have heart speak. It's men have heart speak with strong male leaders. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think we're seeing right now. And that's why I think so many young men are leaving the Democratic Party, because they're just their heart's not in it. How could it be? It's not natural.
Yeah.
Now women, however, it's what's that Bible verse that says a quarrelsome wife is like a leaky roof.
Yeah.
Right now, the modern woman, the modern Gen Z woman is like a leaky roof. Just oh my goodness, the nagging, the problems, the stuff, and I'm talkative, so I have to be on myself sometimes too, because it's that conviction of women don't know everything. I don't know everything. I can't sit here and be the decision maker,
right.
And so, I do think we need young men to put more women in their place and just say, nope, sit down. We got this,
Yeah, just wait and consider this, because you may not know, you may not be aware of all of the facts that are contributing to the situation that MSNBC is on there. Oh, they're deporting high school students. And it's okay, well, that one of the high schools in Panorama City had MS-13 gang members, and some of them went and chopped off a head of a fellow student. Because they're in high school, they get a free pass. I'm sorry, they don't, because a lot of the gangs are in the schools as early as grammar school.
Yeah,
gangs are recruiting forcibly, not by choice, forcibly recruiting members of the gang into a life of crime. And so when we have a disaster in Los Angeles, we saw how unprepared we were for the Palisades fire or the fire. But what about the riots that are going to come? What about all of these different things? We're not prepared as a city, and what is happening over and over is a stand-down order from the mayor to the police that says, don't engage. We'll take videos and then we'll do that. But what that does is that only encourages more of the mob behavior. And so, unfortunately, I see that, the left is not going to give up just, okay, Trump won, we're getting more conservative voices in California. No, they're going to double down, and this is going to be a very volatile period ahead. And so I think the Gen Z, more than the baby boomers, are once they become aware of the opportunities that have been lost because of that liberal mindset and the restrictions and all these different things, more and more you're going to see more of them start to question, wait a minute. I live, okay, we have great weather in California, but look at all these problems. And who's in charge? Governor, lieutenant governor, controller, treasurer, attorney general, superintendent of public instruction, all Democrats. You look at L.A. County, 10 million people in L.A. County, 5 supervisors, 4 of them Democrats. L.A. City Council, you've got 15 city council members, 14 are Democrats. Republicans are irrelevant with regards to blame for the challenges that California is facing. Sooner or later, because of the efforts like what you're doing and other organizations, people are becoming aware, wait a minute, they want me to keep thinking of you as a racist, as all these different things, because that way I won't question, well, who's really in charge? And the fact is, it's the Democrats that are the ones that are completely in charge. And their response to crime is to not fund voter-approved measures like Prop 36. So Prop 36 was going to give a little bit more teeth when someone is arrested for a drug offense, and not a minor drug offense, but it becomes a felony rather than a misdemeanor. And so the judge can offer an addict, okay, here's your option. You go to jail or go to treatment. Well, that was passed with 10 million votes. There's only 5 million Republicans in California. 10 million Californians voted for Prop 36. Why? Because they cared about the number of addicts that were dying on the street, the number of mentally ill people that are roaming through all the neighborhoods. Because they had compassion for those that are less fortunate, whether the addiction was self-imposed or however it became about. The fact is that Prop 36 was a time when Democrats, Republicans, and Independents all came together and said, yes, we want there to be options so many people don't have to die.
Right.
And the Democrats who are in charge of the Senate and the Assembly said, no, we're not going to fund it.
Yeah.
There's no money to open up mental health facilities or drug treatment facilities or that. So who is the really compassionate one? The Democrat legislatures? I don't think so.
Do they have any excuse to say that the funding is used for something else important?
Well, the funding that they pass a lot of bond measures, and what usually happens, they had a bond measure for transportation, and our roads are in shambles. Even the freeways have potholes and things like that. So the people wanted more infrastructure. So they passed a multi-billion-dollar bond measure for infrastructure. So what did the governor do? He said, well, the high-speed rail is transportation. So instead of spending the funds on the highways and the roadways, they diverted it to the special interests involved in building the high-speed rail. That's only about, 2 miles long now in Modesto, with hardly any track laid. And so all of these different things, the same thing, they had a water bond. All of the drought, and they were telling you to take, 1-minute showers, and
Right.
you couldn't do laundry at certain times. You had to let your lawns die. So they put a $9 billion water bond measure on the ballot. And they were going to show that because the Delta smelt was being ground up in these turbines that were bringing the water down from Northern California to Southern California, with this bond measure, they're going to be able to put 2 massive tunnels that go past the turbines so that the water will keep flowing and we'll be able to save the Delta smelt. The bond passed. Did they build the tunnels? No. They started looking at, communities of color are park poor. So we're going to start building parks in communities of color, because that way, if we have a park and there's grass, and when it rains, the water will seep down into the infrastructure. So that is like a water storage unit. We don't really need to build a dam or a reservoir. We're going to build more parks, and then we'll have canoeing along the LA River, and we'll do all these different things. And so the problem never gets resolved.
This is deflection after deflection. It's like a ADHD person is in charge.
Oh no.
Well, no, but they're very smart. I mean, look at the homeless situation in LA County. 70,000 homeless in LA County, and another 40,000 in LA City. The multi-billion-dollar homeless industrial complex in LA, where you have contractors that get sweetheart deals from was Lhasa and LA Family Housing. They're able to build a single studio apartment for $900,000. And so that's not a building. That's one unit, one studio unit inside, say, a building of 25. Why would you cut off the funding stream if you had a cash cow like that?
Right. Yeah.
And so that's why things don't get resolved, and people don't realize that the people who they think are looking out for their interests, they're not. I mean, most people now, when I get out of the Navy, I was in the Navy for 4 years, and I used the GI Bill to do 2 things. I bought a house at 24 for like $27,000 in North Hollywood. And then because I could go to school under the GI Bill, and they would pay you so much per credit, I went to Valley College. So this was like 1972, 73. And so I looked at the courses at Valley College to see, because I was working full-time so I'm going to be going to school at night. I wanted something easy.
Yeah.
So I took Chicano Studies. And it's like, okay, I'm brown. So I went there. And what they were teaching in those courses was that this is an occupied territory. It was taken over by imperialists.
Right.
The Southwest should really belong to Mexico. That the reason that Mexico is a condition that it's in is because the United States has robbed the best part of what Mexico of the Southwest. And at that time, you had to be very quiet and keep it under the radar, and have a lot of kids because white people were cutting down on the number of children they were having. So we're going to outpopulate them. And then once we are stronger in numbers, then we're going to start getting our own politicians elected. And then we're going to be in charge at every level of governance. Now, for a 16, 17, or 17-year-old at Valley College listening to that,
Right.
talk about being easily impressed.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're Hispanic, you're a victim. You were taken advantage of. But since I had been in the service and went all over the world, I was listening to what they're saying. It's like, do you have any idea how other people are living? In Italy or in the Philippines or in Spain? We want to see what real poverty is. And it was something, because it was like, wow, that's a coincidence. The textbook had the same name as our professor, and so they were infusing all of the text by these professors. And so during the last Trump administration, when they were talking about removing the ethnic studies from the community college curriculum. I said, what the hell's been taking you so long?
Yeah.
Because those kids that went through those classes in 1974, they're now your U.S. senators. They're now your mayors. They're now your assembly member, your Congress people. All those people that were indoctrinated that this is an occupied territory are now in power. Has it gotten any better? No, it's gotten worse. So their premise that we are the way they are because the white person has kept us under, they've been in power at every level of governance here in California, with billions of dollars flowing in from the federal government to address the poverty, to address the infrastructure, and it only gets worse. And you look at even today, the reservoir in Pacific Palisades with no water in it.
Right.
Unbelievable.
The mayor's buddy that she hired was getting paid, what, $900,000 or $700,000 a year? You know who was really just another activist to head up the DWP? The last head of the DWP was getting half that much. And no one has taken any responsibility for the fire hydrants not having water in them, the reservoir not having water. Yeah, she fired the fire chief because even the fire chief got so frustrated with these leftist politicians who assume no responsibility and just pass the blame, or they just brush it off. And so now that you have they're cutting the budget in L.A. and the county and the state. You know, it's kind of like that saying that socialism stops working when you run out of other people's money. They've run out of other people's money.
Yeah, so we're coming up on a change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hopefully that change is going to be with a lot of Democrats voting for common sense Republicans that are not just going to sit there and paint them as victims.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of the biggest changes we're going to have coming up next year is a new governor. So that's going to be very big.
Well, hopefully it won't be Kamala Harris.
Right.
That would be sad.
Right.
Well, and here's the fact is you have 11 Democrats running for governor.
Yeah. We've got a lot of them.
that is going to be fun to watch because while they're all Democrats, they are at varying degrees of socialism, Marxism.
Oh, my goodness.
And so you're going to see the Katie Porters, you're going to see the Javier Becerras, the Antonio Villagrosa. Remember, we clean your toilets. All of that. You see them all running. And, you know, and quite frankly, one of the guests that you had on your show, Stephen Kuhlbeck.
Yeah.
You know what? I mean, he's a Democrat, but from a business standpoint, he's the first to admit that the Democrats ruined California.
Yeah, he is. I've seen some of his videos where he said that. Yep, saying that the Democrat Party needs to get fixed up because they're doing some stuff.
And we may not agree with him on every issue, but who agrees with somebody on every issue?
Yeah.
I mean, my wife and I, we've been together 37 years. We don't agree 100%, but we're still married.
Yeah.
Right.
And so,
there you go.
And unfortunately, in the Republican Party, you have people that are single-issue voters that unless you believe the way they believe in that issue, they don't care
about everything
how you
else.
believe on anything else. They're not going to support you or they're not going to vote. And the Democrats just keep on expanding their grip in California.
But if the unanimous decision is that it's terrible and that, you know, it's too expensive to be living in a dump, you know, like and you have the poor and the rich all saying that. It's like that's how things get done. You know, that's how America was kind of built, right? When everybody agrees on something, it's actually things get done.
Right.
But and I think that's what most people agree on in this city is this is not okay.
Right.
No matter what party they're on,
right.
No matter what side they're on, they're going, I don't know, you know, what's happening behind closed doors, but we can't live like this.
Yeah, and people who can't afford to do it, they're moving with their feet. They're leaving the state.
Yeah, which is sad because they're going to states that, frankly, are not like, you know, just don't have the kind of potential that California does. They're giving up. It's sad, you know, but it's like, I get it, you know, I get not wanting to, spend your valuable time somewhere that is not treating your time valuably,
Mm-hmm. That's true. So. We talked about Prop 36 earlier, but I wanted to know, we've had Nathan Hochman on. We've interviewed him. How do you think he's doing right now?
He's doing good.
Yeah?
I met with him a couple of times, mm-hmm. and, he's taken some hard stance.
Yeah.
He's basically said, he's not either left or right. He's more of the hard middle, and each of these cases will be individually judged. And he's basically keeping true to what he ran on.
Yeah.
And that's what we need. Mm-hmm. But, even so, if there was last week, there was a protest in South L.A., where you had 2 of the commuter trains were stopped on the tracks, and mobs were going on there, graffitiing them. They were going onto the trains and terrorizing people, and the mayor told the police department to stand down, don't intervene. In that video of that was a female police officer by herself, surrounded by a mob with them pounding on her car. She was out of her car. They're pounding on the car. They're throwing things at it. And I'm thinking, where's the rest of the police department? You have an officer in trouble, and because the mayor told you to stand down, you're going to let her be injured or worse? And she finally got in her car and it sped away. But to see that you could put a police officer in that position to where no one comes to help her because they don't want to cause a George Floyd type of an incident really shows us that we're really on our own. And so, we have, I know you've interviewed people on the Second Amendment. Yeah. It is really important that we retain the right to protect ourselves, because the police are basically going to be people who show up later and take a report. Mm-hmm. You're going to be on your own.
Well, I guess that could go back to what we were talking about the schools. They're kind of doing the same thing that college students do when they stand down, when they're not taking initiative and obviously helping her, right? They're worried more about the crowd than about what should really be done. So
look at UCLA, and you guys were there.
Yes. Yeah.
And so look at that, and how the Jewish students were treated and intimidated, and so what's happening now? These foreign students are getting a rude awakening. Yeah. If you're there and you're advocating for violence, mm-hmm. your student visa is gone, and they're deporting you, and they're doing that a lot now, and they're cutting off funding for administrations or school administrators that aren't protecting all students, not just Jewish students, mm-hmm. but all students. And so to allow that type of hate to go on at school is no longer tolerable and acceptable. Mm-hmm. And you have a president now that is saying, no.
Newsflash, racism is wrong.
I'm glad that that's happening, because another thing that happened just recently is the attack on the couple that were in the Jewish I'm losing the name right now, but they got attacked. They were gunned down. Mm-hmm. We were talking about that on one of the podcast episodes. They were Messianic Jews. Mm-hmm. And that just shows you, the man was Hispanic. He was Hispanic from Chicago, but he was screaming, free Palestine, right? And that is the craziest thing to see, is that he was willing to shoot the couple, and he planned this too. Yeah. He booked the ticket to go there. He got the tickets to get into the event. He was there throughout the entire event, and perfectly planned out who he was going to kill. And I would like to see him obviously get appropriate consequences, so that's not tolerated, to show that that's not tolerated.
Well, look at and then you had the pharmaceutical executive that was gunned down,
right? Also,
and what was the reaction from some of the legislators? Oh, let's name a bill after the perpetrator. And we want to end abuse by pharmaceutical companies, so we're going to use the bill is going to be under the name of the murderer.
Right.
And it's like, what warped, as if The murderer, it wasn't his fault. He was driven to that extreme by the pharmaceutical companies. And it's like...
I think one of the number one rules is to not acknowledge the killer's name. Usually that's what it is. So that's very interesting that they would even do that. I would think if they really wanted to stop the abuse of the pharmaceuticals, then they would get a family and name it after them who have had experienced that. I don't know. That's just a thought about that.
Just a thought.
This is a thought about that one.
Make it make sense.
No, seriously.
Oh my goodness. Well, we are coming up on the hour here.
Are we already?
Yes,
oh my goodness,
we are. And I think it's just clear that we have to continue what we're doing and continue, creating these conversations about our communities locally and just nationally, because it truly affects us all in one way or another. So
yeah. So I was just wondering, David, what is currently your work looking like? I mean, we're almost to the primaries. 2026 is like, it feels like forever away, but we're like literally almost there. It's crazy. But what's the work look like for you and just those around you preparing for that?
Well, first of all, we're looking for candidates. We want to make sure that there's a Republican candidate in every assembly seat, every Senate, and every congressional race. Because up until we actually got involved in doing that hadn't been encouraged. We looked at to break the supermajority in California in the Senate, all we need is 3 seats. And so right now, one of the people I'm working with is Christina Irwin, who is running for state Senate in the 24th district, which goes all the way down to Rancho Palos Verdes, comes up through the beach cities like Manhattan Beach and Torrance and El Segundo, Redondo Beach, and comes up through into Marina del Rey, Pacific Palisades, keeps on going through Beverly Hills, West Hollywood, but also into the valley, going all the way up to Agora, Westlake Village. And what the Republican Party traditionally has done is they would look at voter registration and they would write it off, the district. 700,000 registered voters in the district, about 400,000 Democrats and 140,000 Republicans. They would pay it no mind. But the fact is, in the last election cycle, she ran as a write-in candidate and got 6,000 write-in votes, the most in the history of LA County, because she was active with moms and different groups regarding the safe vaccines, regarding school shutdowns, regarding all these different things. And so when the final tally was held in the runoff, she received 121,000 votes with a $30,000 budget, where her opponent, who had been in office for 4 years already, spent $350,000 and only got 248,000 votes. So the sitting incumbent only got 248,000 votes out of 700,000 registered voters in some of the most affluent, wealthy communities in Los Angeles. And so as we looked at that, so wait a minute, this is an open seat. She can win this race. Yeah. So we're working with her, getting her the funding, because nothing's changed as far as the issues. So she's the only Republican. There's 11 Democrats all trying to go for that seat because it's an open seat. We're also with our Hispanic Republican Club. We opened up a chapter in Orange County. We opened up a chapter in Ventura County. Our local club and the radio show is going well. We're looking at opening up a chapter in Riverside County next month. And so with the Hispanic Republican Club, that is going real well as well. And so there's a lot going on, a lot of opportunities to be of service. And at that state Republican convention a year and a half ago, where I was elected as on the state board as a regional vice chair, so we have a convention September 5th in Orange County. And so my seat is up for re-election on September 6th. So I'll be running for re-election. And so what I've done with my position, even though it does not come with a budget or a staff, is I'm doing things like next Saturday, I'm putting on an event in Whittier where we're honoring all the Republican elected officials that are in Los Angeles County, whether there's mayors, whether there's city council members, school board members, all of these different we want to acknowledge them and show them that they're appreciated. And it's okay for them to help our candidates that are whose district fall within their city. Mm-hmm. So we have a new Republican as our main speaker, Alex Villanueva, who he and his wife Vivian both registered from Democrat to Republican. So he'll be our main speaker for that next Saturday.
That's wonderful.
That's fantastic. Yeah,
that's amazing. I have one other question too. This is a new question we started to ask, but what is your favorite book?
Favorite book? The Bonhoeffer by who was the author? And in fact, I just read another one of his books, Martin Luther, and it is amazing. I mean, the book is like that, and so then I started reading other Bonhoeffer's writings, his own writings, and so he's got a book called Ethics, which is really a hard read because he's a brilliant theologian. But I just finished a C.S. Lewis book on what was it called, Mere Christianity. Yeah. But you know, I really like books that are written by atheists who have converted to Christianity. Yeah. They have a logical way of presenting how they got to their position. Rather than take everything on face value, or just if it's, I believe it because it's in the Bible. That's it. And so I'm reading C.S. Lewis because he was an atheist, and how he became a Christian, and it made sense. And it's like, okay, you know, I'm not 100% on fire for Jesus 100% of the time, but I'm surrounded by people that are. And so one of the things that C.S. Lewis wrote about is how God uses people who are in kind of like the position that I'm in to be examples for other people. So we're all an integral part of the process. Yeah. And so it's that book I would recommend for people who have a challenge with God, because it's written from a perspective of an atheist who really transitioned.
Yeah, right.
That's true.
It's so true. Wow.
That's
amazing.
So
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
And also, any social media you'd like to shout out? Well,
we got the LA Hispanic Republican Club on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have our websites, and we have our radio show Saturday nights with Marianne Burnell, and we've started having a lot of the candidates for governor on, and it's something because we're opening it up to young people as well, because we really need to focus on the young people that are if they're starting to question, why is the gas getting so high and it's going to get higher? Why is it, all these different things? There needs to be a place for them to get some more information so they can arrive at their own decision. Because once they get there, they're going to be the new voters, and they're going to be the voters in 2026.
Yep. Yes. Yep. Yeah, that's right. That's very My sister will be the first-time voter. Yeah. It's crazy. It's honestly so crazy how time's flying.
Well, I remember when you were a first-time voter.
Yeah. That was literally like not so long ago. Yeah, that was just 2 years ago. So,
Oh my goodness.
No. It's been crazy, but thank you so much, David.
Yeah,
you have been such a great support to all of us, and through this chapter, and I can't wait for the next chapter as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. Looking forward to it.
Yes. Well, thank you all for tuning in, and you can find us at 180shift.org.
Oh, also, before we leave, we're going to YWLS. Check us out if you are going, as well as make sure to click the link in our bio for social media that takes you to Buy Me a Coffee so you can buy us a boba. There you go.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.
All right.